What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Highly Combustible reaction. We're gonna be jumping to something kind of different. America compared. Why other countries treat their people so much better? It's a question that I've had since I started learning about other countries. So let's find out what they found out. Let's jump in. Let's check it out together. Let's roll.
This episode and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help me make more content like this, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought. I'm going to say something that will probably offend many of my viewers. Let me preface this by saying that I, as an American, include myself in the following statement. Americans are quite possibly the most willfully ignorant people on the face of the planet.
Facts, and I agree with that 100%. I own my ignorance.
We have access to the sum total of all human knowledge, yet our understanding of the world rarely extends beyond our own country. And
sadly,
even then, the majority of Americans believe in a vision of the country that does not actually exist. It's not that we're stupid, we just tend to blindly accept that the US is the greatest place on Earth, and therefore don't—
very blindly, and that we're the freest people on Earth, and that apparently we're the only country in the world with freedom. Like, it makes no sense, the kind of mentalities that some people have.
any reason to educate ourselves about the realities of the rest of the world. In this episode, we're going to pull back the curtain on how America actually compares to other countries, and consider why the richest country on Earth fails to treat its people with dignity and fairness. I'm going to provide a list of important topics, then for each item we'll compare the American experience with that of citizens from other nations. Hopefully by providing a side-by-side comparison, you'll be able to see the stark contrast between how most Americans see their country and how it really stacks up against the competition. To give you
a lot of this information, what may also be new to a lot of our Dutch subscribers, might be a way for you to learn a little thing or two about the country that I come from, the country that calls themselves the greatest nation in the world.
An idea of just how skewed the American perception of our country really is, let's start with a pretty shocking example. Compensation for what are considered low-skilled jobs. We'll take the quintessential American company, McDonald's. McDonald's is the world's largest restaurant chain by revenue. It operates in over 100 countries and serves over 69 million customers every day. As of 2018, McDonald's was the second largest private employer, with 1.7 million employees, behind Walmart's 2.3 million. How many times have you heard someone refer to McDonald's jobs or workers in a derogatory manner?
A lot.
For some reason, people who work at McDonald's are seen as inferior or lazy or have any number of other unfair and unkind assessments leveled at them.
Agreed.
This probably stems from the old notion of flipping burgers being a job anyone can perform. But the animosity towards low-wage workers has grown significantly in the past few decades. And in America, McDonald's workers really do suffer a low wage. As of 2020, the average crew member at McDonald's makes $9 per hour.
Yep.
The average McDonald's cashier makes $8 per hour. The federal minimum wage in the United States is $7.25, a rate which has not been raised in over a decade, and which should not be considered a reasonable wage for any position, considering the fact that a full-time minimum wage worker cannot afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. And
some of this information may have changed, as many places in America are looking at jumping their state minimum wages up to $15 an hour, I think it is, for minimum. So some of this stuff could have changed since then, but still, when people think about a derogatory job or something like that, they say go be a burger flipper. Like, that's still a place that people don't view as a career choice, but more like a stepping stone after high school, though some people choose it as a career choice.
Anywhere in the United States, and can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment in over 95% of US counties. Now, the all-too-common response to data like this is something like, well, yeah, it's not a hard job, you should just find a better one. Here's a simple question. Should any job, regardless of technical skill required, pay workers so little that they cannot afford to rent even the smallest place to live? I
said this in one of my videos earlier, and it's totally true. Americans go to work every single day so that somebody else can get rich. And they can barely pay their rent. They can barely get by. Everyone's suffering in a lot of cities.
Mention other necessities like utilities, food, and medicine. Absolutely not. That is inhumane and cruel, especially coming from the second largest employer in the richest country on the planet.
Facts.
Other notable objections include, McDonald's has to make a profit. If they pay their workers more, they might go out of business. First of all, if you can't pay your workers a fair wage, your company should not be in business. End of story.
Did you heard that? Say it again for those in the back, like legitimately.
McDonald's has to make a profit. If they pay their workers more, they might go out of business. First of all, If you can't pay your workers a fair wage, your company should not be in business. End of story. But again, McDonald's is not struggling to make ends meet. In 2019,
Not by any
McDonald's
stretch of
raked
the
in
imagination.
$21 billion in revenue. But no matter how obvious the exploitation of low-wage workers, Americans are hell-bent on praising the very companies doing the exploiting. Take this article on Reader's Digest, for example. It's titled, "This is what McDonald's workers really get paid." You see that and think, oh, nice. Finally some news showing how poorly these workers are compensated. Then you scroll down and nope, they're actually praising McDonald's, saying things like, the food chain is also great for paying their workers fairly, and McDonald's is one of the highest paying fast food chains in the United States. This level of sycophancy is insane. If $8 or $9 an hour is some of the highest pay in the industry, that doesn't indicate that McDonald's is paying fairly. It indicates that a massive chunk of the population is being paid poverty wages.
Yes,
this is where
that's
taking
exactly
an
what's
international
happening.
perspective is so critical.
And it's not just
if
McDonald's.
all you see is feel-good stories about how well McDonald's workers are paid, you'll never know how badly American workers are actually being treated. Let's take the same company, the same position, but in a different country. Here's a McDonald's in Denmark. The average McDonald's worker in Denmark, for doing the same low-skill job, makes $22 per hour. Well, hold on, you hear Reader's Digest scream from across the Atlantic. McDonald's workers in America get paid vacation days after just a year of work. Wow, enticing. In Denmark, when you're hired at McDonald's, not only are you making nearly 3 times what
That's
you would make in an American
crazy.
Mickey D's, you also instantly have access to a full year of paid family leave and
A full year paid family leave. Plus 3 times the money. That's insanity. Ooh, hey, I'm just saying. Some Americans will never wake up, will always believe that it's the land of the free and the home of the brave, and that they got all of the best things in the world, when really, not only are we treated poorly in a lot of times, we're also behind the times of technology. Look at some other countries.
American Mickey D's, you also instantly have access to a full year of paid family leave and a pension. No slaving away for a year to prove your value to the company. You're hired and you're treated fairly. Simple as that. McDonald's can afford to compensate all their workers like this, but they won't, because US laws allow them to exploit American workers to the point where they're basically slaves, earning the bare minimum to survive, paying all of their income and often going into debt just to pay rent, and having no way to escape this vicious cycle because they're working such long hours.
Yes.
This is the case across all of America's low-wage jobs, of which there are many. The plight of the
Many.
low-wage worker is incredibly dire, and all you have to do to understand that is look at how those same workers are treated in other wealthy countries. Let's move on to another topic,
Sad
work-life
but true.
balance. Fair wages are definitely part of this equation. If you're paid fairly, you don't need to work a second job, which will free up your time to be spent elsewhere. But we're going to focus on other metrics, specifically the length of the work week, vacation time, and parental leave. Let's start with the US. Most Americans would say that 40 hours per week is full-time. That seems to be the general consensus. But, in keeping with the country's exploitative labor practices,
Most people work way beyond 40 hours. By the way, there's a lot of people I know that work 60, 70 hours a week.
hilariously named Fair Labor Standards Act does not actually define what qualifies as full-time. That's left up to the employer. Okay, why does this matter? Well, think of your past part-time jobs. Did you get any benefits? Healthcare, 401k? Probably not. Most benefits, when they're offered at all, are reserved for full-time employees. Companies don't want to provide benefits because they affect their bottom line.
Yeah, they have to pay
America
more.
is all about cutting costs, and providing workers with fair compensation is a cost. So, imagine you apply for a full-time job at Best Buy. You're offered the job, but they tell you they only have part-time positions, but they can give you almost full-time. They make it sound like they're doing you a favor, offering you more hours than normal part-time. But this is just another example of employers exploiting their workers.
Yes.
If you work 37 hours per week, you're essentially a full-time employee, but they don't have to provide you any sort of benefits. No.
There's some companies, especially after with the whole healthcare issues that are going on in America, fighting this way and that. There's people that have gotten their hours cut even more now, just so that companies won't have to pay them any sort of benefits. Like, hey, even if you were somebody that worked 45, 50 hours a week, a lot of times now you're being cut back to 38 hours because They don't want to get to that 40 hours a week and have you be considered a full-time employee where they have to pay you some sort of benefits, or even for some of your health care and things like that.
No health care, no vacation, nothing. This is a common practice. Companies will hire people but keep them just below the threshold for full-time to avoid providing fair compensation.
Facts.
I've seen it happen. I used to work at Best Buy and they would do it all the time. And that's just the companies who are still trying to appear generous. Others will simply not offer benefits at all, or set their full-time positions at 50 or 60 hours per week. Sales positions are notorious for this. They'll often say, well, we expect you to work 40 hours, but all the top sellers are working 60 to 70 hours per week. This is coercion. They're trying to pressure you into working more hours to benefit them, and the compensation is never what they claim it will be. By allowing employers to define full-time work, American workers are held captive by corporations, forced to either work absurd hours to qualify for full-time benefits or find a second job to help cover the cost of things like health insurance.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is. Either your family suffers or your family suffers. Your family suffers because they don't get the time with you, or if they do get that time with you, then they suffer because you don't have enough money to pay for your day-to-day life.
Both of these options lead to a terrible work-life balance, and as real wages have decreased and benefits have been offered less and less over the years, huge numbers of American workers have developed an unhealthy work-life balance. For example, in 1960, when workers had real bargaining power, only 20% of American women worked. Today, 70% of children live in households where both parents are working full-time. Where does all this lead? As of 2020, over 85% of American men and 66% of women work more than 40 hours per week.
Then that's why we have a really high divorce rate. That's because of all of this not having time, not having our priorities in the wrong places.
137 more hours per year than Japanese workers, 260 more than the British, and 499 more hours per year than the French. Why do other countries have such a better balance? Because many of them have laws that cap the length of the full-time work week. Companies are required to pay their workers fairly and allow enough time off for employees to maintain a healthy work-life balance. That's not the case in the US. Vacation time is a similar story. Whereas many other countries mandate that employers provide paid vacation and sick days, the US does not. In every industrialized nation, workers get more paid vacation days and holidays than in the US. Here's a depressing graph to illustrate just how poorly we treat our workers. France 31, Spain 34, Austria 38, America 0. 0 paid vacation days, 0 paid holidays. And remember, these are the mandated figures. Every Austrian worker gets a minimum of 38 paid days off per year. Even in the worst possible employment situation, they'd still get 38 paid days off.
Wow.
In the US, many workers are lucky to get Christmas or Thanksgiving off at all. And the odds that it's a paid holiday? Next to 0.
I legitimately can't tell you how many Christmases and holidays I've had to work throughout my life. Probably the majority of the ones. Probably more than I got to spend at home.
On to our final comparison. Paid parental leave. Many Americans aren't even aware this is a thing, so let me explain. When an employee of a company has a child, sometimes they're offered parental leave, a period of time where they can stay home from work to bond with and take care of their new baby. This greatly benefits the employee, the child, and in the long run, the company, because the employee will be happier, less stressed, and more loyal to the company. Of course, offering paid parental leave doesn't benefit corporations in the short term.
Not at all. It takes away from the bottom line. And if there's one thing that encapsulates
the American business philosophy, it's short-term gains over all else.
Yes.
So it won't surprise you to learn that the US is the only industrialized nation on the planet that does not mandate some amount of paid parental leave. This may be shocking to my American viewers because being able to get paid to spend time with your newborn child sounds like an impossible dream in our dystopian labor market.
Yep.
And honestly, it probably is impossible in our current America. We're so invested in self-destructive capitalism that even suggesting the possibility of paid parental leave would put US politicians out of a job. That's not the case in the rest of the industrialized world. In fact, every other OECD nation, and even in many third world countries, new parents are guaranteed at least several weeks of leave. Let's take a look at a few of them. Ethiopia, a country with an annual gross national income of under $900 per person, offers 90 days of leave with 100% pay. Madagascar, 14 weeks at 100%. Afghanistan, 90 days. Denmark, 52 weeks. Norway, 56 weeks. France, 16 weeks at 100% pay for your first child, up to 26 weeks for your third, on top of 104 unpaid weeks.
And because Americans spend most of their time in their hometowns, or never having gone outside of their state, even, let alone ever thinking about going outside of the country, like, they'll never find this stuff out. Nobody will ever come out of the woodworks and tell them. If they stumble upon a video like this, there's a lot of them that legitimately wouldn't believe the things that they're hearing because America's the greatest country in the world.
Lithuania, 52 weeks at 100%, plus an additional 52 weeks at 80%. Again, the United States does not mandate a single day of paid parental leave even for the mother, and the father is never considered. This means that workers in America have to choose to either pay the exorbitant cost of childcare or have one parent quit their job in order to take care of the child.
Yes.
These are both bad options, which often lead to economic precarity. But that doesn't matter to the companies employing American workers.
They don't give a damn about you.
Profit is the only thing that matters. Hopefully, seeing these labor practices compared like this has made it clear that not only is the US not living up to its claim to being the greatest nation on Earth, but also that it consistently ranks poorly and often dead last in terms of labor metrics. Why is it that the wealthiest, most powerful nation on Earth can't pay their workers a fair wage, or provide healthcare, vacation time, or paid parental leave? You should realize by now that it's not that they can't, it's that they won't. Everything in America is beholden to the almighty dollar. Profit is the only motivator. If an action does not produce a greater profit, it will not be considered.
Correct.
Over the last few
In America, money is literally everything. It's what you need to even try to survive at all. Like, if you look at how many homeless veterans and stuff that we have. Why? Because they don't have any source of the income. They don't have any of this stuff. They don't have those social skills that these jobs want. And jobs, companies don't mind firing you. For every one person that they fire, there's 3 more people that are waiting right now for jobs. They don't care. You're very, very expendable. And getting rid of you won't take away from their bottom line. They'll just bring on someone else in your spot.
Decades, Americans have watched as our livelihoods, our quality of life, and our dignity have all been stripped away by those who already make obscene amounts of money.
To those of us
in
that
power
see it,
say
yes.
We're all in this together, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The ultra-wealthy and the world's largest corporations rely on Americans remaining ignorant. They rely on us accepting the lie that America is the greatest nation on Earth, that it couldn't possibly get any better. All you have to do to shatter that lie is to take a look around the world. Other nations take care of their citizens. Even impoverished nations, or nations that we've bombed into oblivion, take better care of their people than the US does. American workers need to relearn the language of class struggle and work together to break the wheel of the capitalist machine. If we want to claim that the United States is the greatest place on Earth, we need to make it that way.
I agree wholeheartedly. We need people to wake up.
I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this kind of content is supported by my patrons on Patreon. This type of video, while very important, is something that sponsors won't touch. In order to pay the bills and keep this channel running, I rely on AdSense revenue, sponsors, and donations from generous viewers. By producing explicitly anti-capitalist content, I lose out on both sponsors and AdSense. If you enjoy the kind of videos I'm producing and you're able to chip in even $1 a month, I would greatly appreciate the support. You can find my Patreon page and join our growing Discord server at patreon.com/secondthought. If you enjoyed this video, consider dropping a like. If you hated it, a thumbs down. You can check out my previous episodes by clicking the links on your screen.
There you have it right there. Definitely go over, show Second Thought some love. We're doing it right now. Hopefully you do it as well. Without them, we wouldn't have the content that you want reacted to. So check them out. I'm going to leave the channel down inside of the description. Hit the like button if you liked it, the dislike button if you disliked it. Hey, I know it's going to be a very, very sad thing for a lot of people to hear on both sides. Like people that don't know that much about America and Americans that don't know that much about the outside world. It's going to be hurtful to both sides to see this video because Americans, a lot of us really are in that mentality. Unless we've traveled, unless we've seen other people that have gone without and other people that have more, we really are ignorant. We really are blinded to a lot of things. We really are told that is the greatest place in the world and that there's nowhere better, which is tragic. Like, it really is at the end of the day, but it's what it is. If you guys, like I said, liked it, disliked, check out one of the videos, subscribe right here. Till the next one, I'm highly combustible. You guys be happy, healthy, safe. I love you to the moon and back. Peace.